Hey everybody, I'm Wes Allen with ABCNJ, and I'm here today to discuss the ABCNJ pre-annual session, which this year is going to be featuring Fresh Expressions. I can actually say that clearly, Fresh Expressions, and I'm here with the guy who's going to be presenting it, Chris Backert. Chris, you want to say hello?
Hi everybody, and hello to all my friends in New Jersey.
Welcome. Listen, want to talk a little bit about Fresh Expressions? We've done this in the region before, but previously we always talked about it with other pastors. And this year we really want our lay folk to come to that pre-session before the annual session proper. And give you an opportunity to kind of talk about the nature of Fresh Expressions and why they might want to be interested.
Well, I think probably the most important thing to consider when talking about Fresh Expressions is that we live in a time, especially in the West and the United States, where really the nature of life and church has shifted. And so what we've just seen over time is that the number of people who are engaging with what we refer to as inherited churches, churches that have been responsible for passing on the inheritance of the gospel from generation to generation, that hard as we may try, with strengthening our internal programs, improving our preaching, making our kids' ministry better, fixing our parking if we need to, advertising better. Hard as we may try, that there's an increasing number of people who, they may not even be antithetical to being part of a church community, but they're just oblivious to it. They're apathetic to it. They drive by tons of churches on Sunday mornings and they don't even notice that those buildings are there. And so fundamentally, what Fresh Expressions is about is, we like to say, it's taking the church that Jesus loves to where the people Jesus loves actually are. And the truth is, where they actually are is not in church. They're at work. They're in our neighborhoods. They are doing their laundry at the laundromat. They are running, and the list could go on and on and on. And so what Fresh Expression is really about is equipping the everyday people of God to cultivate new forms of gospel community, new incarnational communities of faith, fresh expressions that reach beyond the reach of the church as we know it. We are seeing new people coming to faith. We're seeing people finding life in Christian community, understanding it to be church for them that previously did not. One of the things that we've discovered is that sometimes as the everyday people of God go out and reach and start these small communities of faith to reach people in their neighborhood or their network or in their workplace, that as those develop, sometimes people that are reached and come to the faith and begin to live into a life of discipleship find their life in church in that fresh expression, but often they will hit various issues and realities in their life where we talk about it as a bridge, where that bridge or that tether that exists between a fresh expression and an inherited or traditional church, they'll cross that bridge because they might need a greater amount of pastoral care, or someone has passed away, and they would really love it if a person who's been experienced in walking with people through hardship would walk with them and their family.
Let me ask one question. Because what a lot of people hear is something like Fresh Expression, and you're kind of talking about it, but I really want to emphasize for people. When people hear about it, they might just kind of roll their eyes and say, "Oh, great, another outreach program for church."
Right.
But you're literally talking about kind of creative communities that are not necessarily going to act as a funnel into an inherited congregation. Though there's a tether, there might be a bridge, but they're not designed to funnel people in, right?
They're not designed to funnel people in. I think what our observation and encouragement is if we focus on the fundamental thing, which is we want to reach people to invite them into the life of the kingdom, reach people in the name of Christ, where they are, for who they are, among the place that they are, that work in itself, it's not something that we aim for, but a byproduct often is that now, even in inherited church, people have relationships with people who are part of inherited church. People know the name of an inherited church that they didn't know before. And so this is kind of the idea that, you know, in dying you will live. So, but what we are seeing is that it does happen with some regularity. So I'll give you an example. One of the churches we worked with last couple of years is a Methodist church in Wildwood, Florida. And when the pastor got there, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I think there were about 30 folks in the congregation. They starting a number of fresh expressions of church. So they started a fresh expression in a Moe's Southwest Grill. They started fresh expression in a tattoo parlor. They started fresh expression in a dog park that's focused on people who spend a lot of time with their animals. And they now have about...
You pointed out they started not one fresh expression, as this is our new outreach, but expressions, right, because they had to go to multiple places where people are.
And they did that by finding out what were the passions and common interests of people within the congregation and beginning to equip them to start these micro-communities out in the community.
And in some ways, I know it's more deliberate, but in some ways, is the fresh expression the creation of these communities that we almost used to do in our neighborhoods anyway? And now, just because we're so... Everybody wants to blame screens, but, you know, we're so busy going to work and to games and to shopping and all these other tasks that we have to do that we're not necessarily in a neighborhood anymore, most of us. And so there's small communities where we used to find an expression of faith out in the world. They just don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I think one possible parallel that could sort of dovetail what you're saying is you could think back to pre-automobile, when, you know, we had a church in every, you know, if you lived in a city, you had a church, you know, nearly on every block or neighborhood, and maybe a few varieties of them. And people generally walked to church. They went to the church in their neighborhood. And one way you could say the church was very close to people's lives. Literally, it was close. It was within walking distance. Or if you lived out in a more rural setting, you know, this is why there's tons of Baptist and Methodist churches all across the country, because every 3 to 5 miles they would plant a new congregation, because that's as far as a horse would take you. And, you know, so there were churches, literally, they were close to people's lives. But as people's lives have become spread out, and the plausibility structure of sort of church as we know it, you know, Sunday morning, 9:30 or 11 o'clock, that even that idea is just not plausible for people anymore. Church has gotten very distant from people's lives.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is recreate the closeness of church bumping up against the life of people.
Okay, well, we don't want to give away any more because we actually want people to show up at the pre-annual session, and if we ask anymore, they'll be like, oh, I don't need to go now, but everybody, you need to be there. I hope this kind of whet your appetite to come and hear more about Fresh Expressions. It's really kind of a fascinating shift that we're going through. It has a great many opportunities for creativity, for life of the faith out in public, creating these little communities. And ABCNJ really has presented this as a way forward for not just congregations, but for the gospel itself. So, Chris, I want to thank you for your time.
Thanks, Wes. And
I will see you in September.
Sounds good. See you soon.
Along with everybody else out there, right?
That's right.
So thank you. Folks, please come. Chris, do you want to invite everybody personally?
Yeah, I'd just love to have you join us for the ABCNJ Academy Early Session, where we'll delve deeper into all these topics and also get practical as to, you know, how could your local congregation start living into this reality and reaching people who will come to church as we know it and those who will not.
Folks, we will see you at Annual Session Weekend in September. If you do not know when that is, then naughty, we're going to be shaking our fingers at you metaphorically. But you can go to abcnj.net and find all the information. Register soon, because August 15th is the end of our New Dawn pricing. After that, the prices begin to go up. So you want to register soon so you can hang out with Chris and see all your friends and family at Annual Session this year. Thanks a lot.